Good evening, America. Welcome to a Wednesday night on Break the Machine podcast. Tonight, we have the lovely, the intelligent, and my dear friend, the Chris Influence, with us for a little bit tonight. She's back, and we're going to get into a pretty good conversation tonight about the deep state and some other things with the time that we have her. If you'd like to support the show, there is a Buy Me a Coffee link at the top of each chat in both YouTube and Rumble. Please take a look at it. It's on you. And please sign up for the Discord. Jonathan, he drops it in the chat repeatedly. We want to build that Discord community up because we're looking to get into on a Saturday night movie night on the Discord with everybody. And it's also a place where we can continue to talk to each other when we're not doing these shows and you're not in the chat. So just let me say hi to Jonathan Stevie, Rosie Riveter. It's good to have you. And without further ado, let's bring in the Kristen Influence. Hi,
I
Kristen. How are you
am
today, hon?
I am doing well. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. The ultimate patriot, Eric, and just to be on Break the Machine is an honor as always. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you loud and clear. Do we got Jonathan? We got Kristen. I hear her perfectly.
Oh my
Chat, do we got
goodness,
her?
Jonathan. I feel like I'm in the hall of legends with Jonathan
Uh,
and Rosie. And oh my goodness, do we have Jay? Or is that also Jonathan? No, that's
no, that's
Jonathan.
Jonathan. Jonathan.
So it's an alter ego.
Jay. Yeah, Jay will actually be with us on Friday.
All right, okay.
Um,
So we have
one thing
Jonathan
I'd like,
squared.
one thing I would like to do is, if you're in the Discord, in the prayer requests, Jonathan's grandma, she had surgery and whatnot, and he put in a prayer request. We've been giving it out to him, so please, say a prayer in the chat, give him a quick prayer in the Discord if you're signed up with us and stuff like that. Again, all
Can
right.
I say
So
a
just
prayer
want to
for Jonathan's grandmother?
absolutely, absolutely, Kristen.
Dear Lord, we ask you right now. You always say, you've told us where two or more are gathered in your name, you are there also. So we lift Jonathan's grandmother up to you right now, Lord. We ask that you have full control over her healing and handle any area in her life, physically, emotionally, mentally, that needs healing and restoration, Lord, and revitalization, every area in her life, and of course, the whole family. So we thank you, Lord, that we know that you are faithful, that you are a healing God, and that you are taking care of each and every one of us. So we place Jonathan's grandmother's care and well being in your hands, Lord, and we have faith that you will take care of her and lead her to full health, wellness, and restoration. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I hope that you heard that okay.
I heard you
Okay.
loud and clear, and I'm sure the America heard it. That was a beautiful prayer. Thank you, Kristen, for his grandmother needs it, and we have to constantly have this family that we put together, this community. We got to constantly have each other in our prayers, as we're praying for America and we're praying for the president to succeed and for his people to lead correctly, which we'll get into some of that a little bit later. So again, that was a very beautiful prayer. Thank you
Oh,
very, very much,
thank you.
Kristen, for sharing that one with us. And
Well,
Jonathan, brother, we love you, and we're gonna
yes.
make sure that we continue to pray for your grandma, man.
Yes, we will have her in our thoughts and prayers, and just know that God is good and He is a healing God. And we just have to ask Him, bring things to Him, and just know that we're in faith as we have Him do His healing work. So the most important thing is that we're not to worry, and to be in thoughts of faith and confidence. And that's what He is so good at doing, is doing what we can't.
Right. Amen. Amen. Well, let's get into it, right? Let's start you guys have been hearing the last couple of shows. We've been talking about how the deep state has closed ranks, and we've been talking about these corrupt judges that have been absolutely doing what they can to stop the Trump administration and Trump from doing his executive duties. That everything from getting rid of people to get this to deporting freaking criminals. They're trying to stop absolutely everything, right? To you know whether we agree with what's going on in the Middle East with them bombing the shit out of the Houthis in order to get the shipping lanes back open, doesn't matter whether we agree with it. The president is on the move doing stuff, and these activist judges, straight out of the pits of hell, have been trying desperately, okay, to continue to rupture um, their constitution and their constitutional duties. They're not doing it. So we got a quick article from the Gateway Pundit, and if anybody has been paying attention, okay, to what has been going on with this one judge that's been going back and forth with the Trump DOJ. He's been trying desperately to get the DOJ to stop these flights from deporting these gangsters, these thugs, and murderers and rapists and everything, and actually bring them back to the United States. He also wanted to make sure that he wanted the flight logs and all kinds of stuff. So they've been going back and forth, and this same judge now, that same judge, okay, is now on a lawsuit that one of these left leaning activist groups, we have our own, we were doing this to Biden. They want to have they want to get the information on the signal chat that went on. If you guys have been paying attention, there was an OPSEC issue that we had where this anti-Trump, what's his name, Joseph Goldberg or something like that, you know this what do you call it, journalist was accidentally, which I don't think was accidentally, nothing is done by accident, placed on the chat. And he went ahead and said that he got all kinds of top secret information, which was bullshit, and that he got war plans, which was bullshit. And they actually had a hearing on that uh today. And before we get into that, Jonathan has a response from your prayer. So last I heard about mi abuela is her blood pressure is a little high and her CO2 is high, but otherwise stable. Well, it's good to hear that she's stable, brother. So I'm glad. But anyway, I'll read a quick, just read a little bit of it, and then we'll get into it. Kristen. Says deep state strikes again. Obama appointed Judge Boasberg assigned to signal chat lawsuit involving Pete Hegseth and Representative Mike Waltz. You can't make this shit up, folks. Radical left is at it again, and this time they've dragged out one of their favorite weapons, activist litigation. The far left watchdog group American Oversight has filed a lawsuit targeting some of President Trump's most loyal warriors, including Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, and DNI Tulsi Gabbard. Their supposed crime, using the double encrypted messaging app Signal to communicate about military operations. The latest witch hunt stems from a wild claim by Jeffrey Goldberg, not Joseph. His name is Jeffrey. I had his name wrong. The notoriously anti-Trump editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. And then Goldberg claimed he was accidentally added to a secure Signal group chat where top Trump officials were allegedly discussing sensitive military actions against Iran-backed Houthi terrorists in Yemen. So this is where we're at. Okay, some more of this. Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. Uh, it, Chef, I get you, man. It really is bullshit because there wasn't any. If anybody was in the military who's been watching this, if you've actually seen the texts that were released, there wasn't anything in particular. There wasn't any troop movements, troop numbers, anything like that, dates, times, or any of that shit. So it was just essentially a texting back and forth of what we already knew, because like the information came out about the bombings like 2 days ago, right? Like on Monday we knew about that they were going to be bombing the shit out of the Houthis in Yemen to open up the shipping lanes again. So uh, what do you think, Kristen?
I mean, it just seems to be one thing after the other, and I'm not totally sure. I mean, you and I had this conversation earlier today, and it actually started with what's going on with all of the Tesla bombings and the vandalization.
Yeah.
And I had mentioned that, as wonderful as it is that Trump reassumed office, rightfully so, the same people are still in play, and all of the same figures who have toxic war crime agendas
Yeah.
for not only our country but worldwide. Anyway, uh, the thing that's just hard for me is trying to understand who we can trust in our own system, and
Right.
whether it's our own judges and who are the ones to really be concerned about. I don't know if, other than just really going deep into looking through a track record, if we can ever understand who's who. Sometimes we can. I mean, I've been disappointed with some individuals on the Supreme Court I didn't expect to be disappointed by. So
Right.
what do you think about that? I think it's more of a, do you feel that this is an ongoing issue no matter what we do, no matter who's in office, that it's going to be one, toxic cycle after another? Or do you think that there's a way forward where we can have people in our government we can trust?
I think at some point down the line, not anytime in the near future, because there is so much rot and just it's just a giant cesspool in Washington D.C., right? Let alone our own states and cities. It's all the same shit wherever you go, right? It's the same swamp, just in different locations. But I will say this: I know that our president, okay, he's put the right people in places, okay, but there is still a systemic rot within these agencies that need to be gutted out, right? It really needs to. Jonathan says that when had made a comment, he says it wasn't an accident. Mr. Goldberg was added by a waltz aide. Apparently, that aide's wife is responsible for persecuting J6ers. So there you have it. Uh, it's unless you get rid of that rot, but again, we have these activist judges. Every time he's trying to fire people and he's trying to downsize and he's trying to do whatever he's trying to do within the government, okay, having his agency heads actually, you know, uh, what do you call it, execute the mission that he's given them. All right, he can't get it done because these activist judges, and then he has to appeal, and then he has to freaking, if the appeal doesn't go through, then he has to ask for an emergency order from the Supreme Court, because he's going to continue to do it the way we're supposed to do shit by law, right? Like, he's already said that no matter what, we're not the Biden administration who didn't listen to the judges, who didn't, who just direct our constitution as a whole because it was a dictatorship the last 4 years. All right, he doesn't want to do that. So I kind of understand. We, as a populace who are tired of this shit, want to see things happen right away. But you have to understand that things are just not going to happen. We wish there are some things that can happen right away, but most of this shit is just, this government route is terrible. These judges. I posted on Instagram today, like a third of the judges on the DC circuit alone, because these judges at the DC circuits are the ones that giving him a hard time. Okay, a third of them are foreign born fucking judges, and most of them didn't even have any kind of judicial, okay, experience prior to, but they were just, appointed and whatnot. And I'm pretty sure some Republicans appointed some of these assholes too. So it's a mix of dumb shit. So like it's just, it's a scheme that has to just get wrecked.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't. That's just
That,
how I feel.
that's a good way to put it, and I don't know if there really is a way around it, because the degree to which this root system has been growing for a really, really long time. You call it the deep state, you call it the swamp, you can
Yeah.
call it whatever you want, but
Yeah.
the amount of power and money and the spirits behind it, I think, when you think of the human spirit and what it's capable of, if it has a goal of righteousness that it wants to achieve, nothing can stop a human being when God is at the center of their mission. And that's a wonderful power, and that's a force that's, to be appreciated in a way that you can just stop and be in awe of what the human mind and heart is capable of.
Yeah.
Conversely,
Yeah.
there are other spirits in play that also
Evil
have a lot
spirits.
of power. Now, keep in mind, we all know who wins in the end and who already won 2,000 years ago, right? On the
Yeah.
cross. And that's eternal. He lives outside of time. He won the battle between good and evil. And that's something we always have to keep in our hearts. But we live in this linear construct of time where we have to sort of play out the game, the battle, so to speak, of applying what we know is true to sort of this um, almost like this theatrical experience of saying, okay, here's this element that we know already has been overcome, but we have to apply the tools at hand to overcome it in real time, even though the battle was won eternally outside of time, if that makes sense. So we have
That does.
this spiritual armor at our disposal at all times, and we have to remind ourselves that we are in a spiritual battle. And we have
It is.
to constantly be up against the enemy and remind him that he already lost. But we're seeing the effects of what the evil behind it all is capable of. And so that's why we can't be complacent and just sit at home saying, I'm just, reading my Bible at home and I'm not talking to anybody about it and I'm not doing anything bad. So I'm one of the good guys. It's like, no, you have to stand up and speak for what's right and, bring people to the truth and to God, to the Lord as much as we can. But when we see these terrible things taking place, speak the truth, speak the word, and say, woe to those who call good evil and call evil good. So when we're talking about a battle, there is a level of righteous anger that we have to display and say, as an American citizen, how can we ever expect to have a life, a culture that is one of healing and prosperity when we're divided like this, when technically we all should be on the same side? Who wants a government that's corrupt, that's run
Right.
by evil entities, right? No one would want that, whether you're on the left or the right. So it's like it's basically about doing what you're doing right now and bringing things to light, letting people be educated, and saying, I didn't know that. How can I be part of the solution? And I think that is something everybody can determine where their part is, even if it's just having the conversation with family members or going to their local congressman office, office of representatives, whatever it might be, writing a letter, doing something, saying that I stand here. This is what I believe. Being true to
Right.
yourself and being honest. And when you hear a friend speaking for whatever it might be, say, you know what, I would like to have that conversation with you. Why do you believe what you believe? I don't know. Whatever it is, there's a place for you. And it doesn't have to be necessarily a podcast or going on national television. But I think all of our ears have to be open and our minds have to be open that this isn't something that's just going to go away because Trump won the presidency.
100%. And I think that Magalorian hits it right on the head here. It's good to see you back again, Magalorian. It says these jackals have been embedded in our government
Mm.
for decades and decades. This purge will take longer than 4 years, 100%. Of President Trump's
Yeah.
second term, it is a leviathan of people who hate America. You're hitting that nail right there. And hang on, Jonathan added. He says Alex Wong is the name of the person that added the journal. His father-in-law has ties to the CCP, and his wife Candace Wong was one of the main prosecutors for J6. So there you go, right? Like, and I saw reports that they were trying, like, okay, so there were a bunch of people, like, we see these reports, and I have to say alleged because even though in my heart I might believe it's true, I have to still say alleged on the air, right? That you know this happened because there were some people that they wanted essentially on the president's cabinet, essentially the scumbags and the ass maggots that are still part of the swamp. They obviously didn't get picked. Trump didn't want them anywhere near his cabinet, anywhere near government, and they're trying to get the Pete Hegseth, Radcliffe, Gabbard, Marco Rubio was on there, JD Vance was on there, but he's the vice president, so that's not going anything. Trying to get these people fired essentially, so that they can just overhaul his whole cabinet. That's not going to happen, right? Because like Trump stood by Walls, okay, and again, was it an OPSEC issue? Those of you who are in the military, you know what OPSEC is. Yeah. Was it an intelligence issue? No, because everything that was in the chat was already public knowledge. Like, so it wasn't anything new or anything. Jeffrey Goldberg was like, yeah, I got war plans. And then he went and posted the text from Signal. By the way, so everybody understands, Signal goes back to the Obama administration. Okay. The Obama administration actually approved this for government, okay, chat and stuff like that, going way back, okay, to the Obama administration. So this isn't a new thing with Signal, as far as government employees talking on it back and forth, because it actually is a very secure um, system. But it just, like Jonathan was saying, they put this asshole intentionally in the chats that he can get the information and whatnot, and try to wreck shop. And it didn't work, right? And then so like they had this freaking stupid dumbass hearing that the Democrats wanted, right? So Republicans gave it to them, okay. And every time they asked one of their dumb questions, they got absolutely completely crushed by the panel, by Gabbard, by Ratcliffe. I don't think Hegseth was in there. Who I don't. There was like two other people who were on there. And they absolutely wrecked them, right? So every time they came up with one of their asinine questions, Ratcliffe, they were asking us one of the dumbass questions from one of the stupid, what do you call it, Marxists on the panel was like, Do you know if Pete Hegseth was drinking when he was in this chat? Like dumb shit like that. Like, and they asked Tulsi that, and Tulsi was like, "Yeah, I don't know anything about Pete Hegseth's personal life." And then John Radcliffe just unleashed on this fool. So you know, I personally, nothing is by coincidence in my mind. And going back to what you were saying about that righteous anger, that we have it on our side. I know we do. Okay, I know everybody in this chat has that righteous anger in them. We're tired of the bullshit. Okay, we stand up, we talk. We're truth seekers, we're truth tellers.
Mhm.
Okay, and we're not going to we're not sitting around anymore. It's not even just like you said being on this podcast. We just like we talk to whoever we have to. Hi Rosie, happy Wednesday, honey. Um,
Hi, Rosie. Hi, everyone.
you know, and so it's just like you said, when my thing is this, and we've talked about this, behind the scenes and in our personal lives and our conversations and whatnot that we've had with one another. There are people, okay, in this world that just want to see the world burn, and we're seeing
Yeah.
that play out. Okay, that the people who are wrecking their neighbors' Teslas and whatnot, and Molotov cocktailing Tesla, what do you call it, dealerships and whatnot, and just like wiping their fucking sweaty asses on. It's the insane thing.
I know you
It's
can't you
such
can't even
insanity.
believe what you're seeing from human beings who are some are again, some of these people are successful, well-to-do people with families who live in nice neighborhoods who are doing this. So for some reason in their minds, they believe that they're doing the right thing. It's somehow because this is their religion. So the
Yeah,
overlords of the government have become their gods. And whatever way the wind blows with the media, with the narrative, with the agenda driven ideas that are imprinted in their minds, they will go along with. And that's a cult. You know what I mean?
yeah,
That if you can't think for yourself as a grown man or woman, that getting out of your car in broad daylight and going to vandalize somebody's personal property is not the right thing to do. Probably someone who even voted for the same person you voted for,
I
ironically.
know.
Most of these people
Yeah,
are on the left who own these Teslas or whatever. It just really is such a perfect example of people who cannot think for themselves because they've bought into this culture that they are part of, this idea, these this group that they belong to, and they say apparently daddy government's their god, and they
right.
believe that whatever narrative that is constantly spewed about Trump and the people who voted for Trump, little by little by little, they wake up every morning with such vitriolic hatred and a passionate hatred for his voters that somehow vandalizing personal property is quote unquote the right thing to do. I don't understand how I don't know how badly how this can how much more this can devolve. I don't know
Right.
what it is that these
Oh,
people are capable of.
well, they're capable of anything, right? On Friday we were talking about the swatting that was going on.
Yeah,
Okay,
can
last
you
week
talk
we
about
had
that? My goodness.
yeah, so last week we had now swatting is a thing that has been around for a while.
I'd never
Okay,
heard of it until
yeah, it's been around for a while, and what these leftists they do, they end up doxing. Uh, in particular, they try to do it to conservatives or people who they think are conservative, because they did it to Tim Pool. Okay, while he was on air and he got swatted. Can you believe that? So what they do is they find out where these people live. They call whatever local police department is for where these people live, and they say crazy stuff like, so and so's in there with guns and they're holding somebody hostage. They do all kinds. They say all kinds of nutty. They're in there murdering somebody, whatever it is. So then, SWAT gets together along with the local units, and next thing you know, the cops are banging down your door. So on Friday's episode, I showed a clip from CNN who actually did a really good segment on it. Surprisingly, it was coming from the Communist News Network, where they highlighted some conservatives that had happened to, and one of the guys was saying, he was in Alabama. He says, yeah, all I hear, they didn't identify themselves and they were banging on my door. So my first thought was to go get go get the Roscoe, okay, and I'm gonna protect myself and my wife because it's me and my wife in the house. And if it wasn't that he had a ring, okay, or whatever camera system he has where he was able to see on his phone on his cameras that it was police, okay, that he put the gun down and he was able to talk to them and stuff like that. And and but it's happened, and they don't do it just once, right? They do it over and over because like it happened to Tim Pool more than once. It happened to there's a YouTuber by the well, he's on Rumble now only, called The Quartering. It happened to him, and then it happened to it happened to Cat Turd last week. It happened to Joe Pags last week. There was a couple of other
How are they finding out? Like, no one even knows who Cat Turd is.
Yeah, well, they found this information somehow. These people are good at what they do, right? And they hack their system and they do spoofs and all kinds of stuff, and they protect themselves from, well, people are getting found out. Cat Turd actually did a response like a day or two later, and he was like, "We actually caught the asshole, so like, we're gonna prosecute him." So for me, when I see this happening, it is meant to murder people. It is a method. It is attempted murder, and they want to actually see people die. And it's not just the conservatives that they're going after, right? Because again, like I said, this one gentleman who was in the story telling, okay, he grabbed his gun because they didn't identify themselves as cops. So if they banged through his door without him seeing on the ring footage or whatever footage he had that they were cops, and they come through and he opens up on them, they coming in with automatic weapons. They're gonna light them up, and they're gonna light up the whole house. Okay, him and his wife are probably gonna get killed, and that is what their intention is to actually
Do
murder
you hear
us.
what
All
you're
right.
saying, right? Do you understand? Of course you do. So I say this rhetorically. Like, of course I do. I'm reporting on it on my podcast. Like, do you understand what you're saying right now, Eric?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So
Yeah. Got
obviously, I
it.
know that you do. As you explained it to me, I learned about it because of your sharing it with me. So once again, I say that rhetorically. But
I know that.
do
I
we
know.
understand as collectively what a massive deal this is? What a problem it is? What a disgusting level of depravity we're dealing with when it has turned into a situation where the very people calling for the destruction of all police departments, the very people
Right.
who are calling for defund the police. Can you believe people were voting for that? Are the
Yeah.
very people who are using the police departments, you know, FBI, SWAT teams, whatever, against conservatives who are only looking to establish law and order. That's what
Right.
we're dealing with at this point. It's just
Right.
disgusting. So I mentioned this months and months ago. I said, everyone's all excited. Trump won, and I'm like, yeah, that's nice, but where does this go now? The same people who are capable, they don't have morals, they don't have standards. Now they're
Right.
pissed. What are they doing? These people are sick. They won't stop. They have no boundaries whatsoever. They don't care about anybody but themselves. And
Yeah. And
anyway.
yeah, Magalorian says that they're mindless drones. She was talking to Jonathan. 100%. This is decades and decades of indoctrination. Okay. Just going back to
Remember we were talking
the
about Yuri
yeah,
Bezmenov
yeah.
explaining
In
it
the
from
19 yeah
KGB?
in the 1950s, in the late 50s, it got ramped up. But they set the infrastructure up in our schools and in our universities in at the beginning of the 20th century, and then they just continued to immerse themselves into our institutions, and eventually, when the time was right, snap, they get the Thanos snap, and it's let's burn America to the ground, right? And they've been going full stop now openly, okay, somewhat openly since the 1950s, and really, really openly in like now in the 2000s, right? They're overtly saying exactly what they want to do. They're telling you that they want to take people's money, they want to take people's property. This so-called, you get these idiots like Bernie Sanders and whatnot talking about, oh, the rich got to pay the it used to be millionaires, now it's billionaires got to pay their fair share. But this guy
Yeah,
has fucking
mine
three
my
homes.
meanwhile, they're stealing hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars from the American taxpayer and putting it in their
Correct.
own pockets. Sorry, didn't mean to cut
Correct.
you off. It's just
No,
such a
no, yeah, no.
joke.
Yeah, it's correct. With their insider trading, guy has three homes. and he's a career politician, has never held a job outside of Washington
Yeah.
D.C. The Chuck Schumers, the
Oh,
Nancy Pelosi's, the Elizabeth Warrens of the world, and
yeah.
on our side we have the Mitch Foreskin Neck McConnells. We got uh Dan fucking One Eye Willie Crenshaw, and stuff like that. So it's going on both sides. So like can't just call them out. We got to call our side out too that are doing it, and they line their pockets
Oh, yeah. I
with
mean,
their
but again,
kickbacks and their insider trading.
then there are just frauds who are rhinos. If you're really a true conservative, you wouldn't be doing those things. And you know what? I'm talking about somebody who says life, liberty, freedom, the pursuit of happiness, one nation under God, someone who
Right.
lives their life aware that they have that they are submitted to an authority greater than themselves, you know,
Well,
that there
that's the
is a
majority of
God
us.
who is all powerful, and understanding that it is he who we submit to, that kind of person who
Yeah,
understands that you treat people with respect, you treat people how you want to be treated, that
yeah,
you handle business with integrity and character, basics.
yeah. The
Apparently,
typical
apparently
basics.
that's such a lost concept that
Yeah,
people
it
just don't
is.
want to acknowledge anymore.
It
So,
really is.
you know,
I just it's well, not fascinating in the sense that wow, that's fascinating. It's just like it's
it's
mind-boggling.
shocking.
They're very, very shocking, and it's a deplorable thing to watch. Like you're watching all this scummery, right? It's just like
That's a good word.
it's just like holy shit, people are just so freaking twisted. And again, it's because they're godless. They can falsely say that they believe in God, right? And they go to church, and
Yeah, I don't
you
want to
see
hear
them.
it from any of
Yeah,
them.
you see them do their little, photo ops at churches and
Yeah,
some
right.
service where somebody is freaking, saying all kinds of stuff, and they're just all false. They're just all false,
Of
and they're
course, yeah.
charlatans, and
Charlatans.
and you just want it all to, as a populace, and we see this, and we just want this shit to end because we're tired of it, right? The whole reason the election happened the way it did is because Americans are just tired of it, okay? And we want to see things happen. And Red Day, I tell you guys, make sure you guys check out his Rumble. Every Sunday, he drops a rumble of everything that has been done for the week, that the administration was doing, anything the DOJ is doing, the FBI, any of the other agencies and stuff like that. So, he does these 12-minute videos that are really, really good, and he's talking really fast because he's trying to get it all out and everything. And I laugh at him about it. I was like, bro, you got to catch your breath when you do it. And he's like, I can't. There's just so much shit that's getting done. So in 63 days, okay, are we at 63? I think we're at 63 days of this administration. A lot more has been done than that we haven't seen, and you got to be paying attention to it. But most people, we want we want immediate gratification for things because we're tired, is what it is. And I understand that sentiment. Like I don't get upset with people when they just want shit done. Like it's because we've been watching, like I said, this scummery go on forever, many of us for decades. I'm 51 years old. I've been involved in politics since I was in my teens. Okay, so we're looking at like almost 40 years of me being involved and understanding how things are supposed to work in this nation.
Can
So
we have a
like you're
shout
seeing
out
all
for
of this
how
shit.
young Eric looks, by the way? Shout out in the comments. You look so young. You don't look anywhere
Thank
near
you.
your age. But no, seriously, you do have this wonderful background and resume of serving our country. You've been around, you've seen a lot. And so the evolution of how it's become what it is from, a significant period of time, as opposed to someone who's, 25 and just starting out and understanding this whole political game. But you mentioned something really important, and that is why the election turned out the way that it did, is that you had the silent majority of people who are absolutely up to here, as pointing right below the chin.
Yeah.
They're sick of it all. It's people don't believe these things, and this business of, even with the men can be women and women can be men. Like, what are you talking about? Up until at no
Uh,
point in history were we having this problem, this conversation. It didn't exist. I
yeah.
graduated college almost 20 years ago, and 2005 in May, And I remember thinking, that was 2005, wasn't that long ago.
Right. It
Life was
really
pretty
isn't in the grand
modern.
scheme
We
of
had
things.
navigation in cars, and there were cell phones, and flat screen TVs and computers, and there was Facebook. It's not like it was that long ago, okay?
Right.
Life didn't look that much different outside of like the iPhone, all right? And it's if you were to have told me then, which was not that long ago, that we would be having this conversation, oh, by the way, we've reached a point in culture where it's considered an argument that men can be women and women can be men, and they can't define for you what a woman is, I would have been like, what? Are you
Yeah.
kidding me?
That.
What? Like, wait, what? And this is not that long ago. So what I'm saying is that it would have been like, huh? For the whole country, for the whole country,
Yeah.
Democrat, Republican, I don't care. If you were to have said that your average boy, young boy, can go home and say, Mommy, Daddy, I want to be a girl, and they'd be like, okay, that's a good thing. We're going to start you on
Yeah.
hormone blockers and castrate you by the time you're 10 years old. And here are your, new pronouns. It would have been so far from a conceptual reality then.
Right.
And here we are 20 years later, and we have to argue with each other that you can't tell me what a woman is.
Yeah.
That
No. It's
right
it's
there,
it.
that's it. That's the crux of the entire uh, problem that we're having, is that you've reached a point of complete and total insanity with these ideologues or whatever, these people, these
Yeah.
dogmatic religious
Yeah.
psychopaths, that they can't even express to you that they understand where you're coming from when you say, I don't know, I have a problem with the fact that if my kid were to come home and telling me he's the uh, opposite gender, I might not agree with that. You're the crazy person.
Yeah, it's a sickness. That's not that. It's a sickness that's forced upon our kids. That it's they're injected with it, right? They're growing up with it. They're injected with it. So they end up getting their mentals absolutely rattled. Okay, at a young age when their brain is developing and they're
Yeah.
learning and their psyche is developing as well. So they're getting injected with this shit. So that is just a it's adults doing this to them, and then in the case of their parents that are going along with this crap. Oh, hi Rogue Nina, how are you, honey? um
Hi,
it,
Nina.
their parents that are, what do you call it, going along with this, a lot of it is just their parents. It's these women that want to live vicariously through their son. They always wanted a daughter, so they, what do you call it, they mutilate their boy.
That's
And
nice.
cuckold men who have absolutely no cojones, and they're not like the Adam Venus of the world, who was on this show and told this story of the fight that he's having in the state of California to try to save his son, okay, from his crazy ass ex-wife. you know um and it's just a tough ass fight in a state like California, but he hasn't given up. We told him on the show, don't give up. Don't, keep all the pictures, do everything you need to do. At some point, your boy's going to come to you when your boy gets old enough, and gets out of that unfortunate fog that he's in, that's being done to him by his mother and the system. So it is a horrible, it's a wicked, it is an ungodly thing. It is demonic in nature. Okay, it's very, very satanic. So that's where it comes from. It comes from the pits of hell, this ideology. And these people who don't believe in God, okay, don't believe that we're his children, and that he actually, his voice is always with us. They don't believe that shit, right? And they're constantly trying to subvert his word.
Yes.
And we're at a point in our history, in American history, where Americans need to wake the fuck up. We are still, regardless, we may have lost a lot of it, but we are still a godly nation. Okay.
Uh,
And we can grab it back. We started this fight. We're not going to stop this fight, and we can grab it back and get back to our roots of who we are and what we are, and get rid of all of this insanity. We can do it as a nation, but we just got to have the not only the mental fortitude, you got to have the spiritual fortitude to stand tall. We have to stand tall and fight
yeah,
back on
that's the
this.
difference. It's the complacency issue that even Christians and people of God, just people of logic, But of
Yeah.
course, it does take the godly spirit in your heart to be able to go through the obstacles and go through the discomfort, because you're doing it for a greater reason than yourself. Uh,
Right.
However, with that said, I would say, um, there was a point in time where it really wasn't even an issue of faith in God, which of course is the most important thing, that these debates would have been had. Even people who were quote unquote
Right.
atheists had no
Yeah.
problem understanding the difference between a man and a woman up
Yeah.
until 10 minutes ago.
Mm,
So
yeah,
that goes to show
even the
you,
scientists, many of them who
right.
are atheists, they believed in basic biology, right? Like
I
so
mean, I
that
mean,
yeah,
it was never a question. It was never an issue. It wasn't a
oh,
thing.
agreed.
It wasn't a
Agreed.
problem. So if you would have asked any of the most, left wing atheist people, philosophers, scientists, whomever, 15 years ago, what's the difference between a man and a woman? They would have been like, well, let me tell you the difference between a man and a
Yeah, they
woman.
would explain it right away.
How dare you
Yeah.
even ask such a silly question? Let's get to the
Magallorians
science of it. So
Magal
what does
yeah,
it tell you that here
Magallorian's
we
got a
are?
good
Oh,
yeah,
let's
Magallorian's got a good quote for us.
we're
She
having
says we're having this culture conversation because paid opposition, Republicans as well, true, have lost the culture war. 100%. I agree with that. That uniparty fucks, they're part of the problem too. There's a huge part of the spiritual war, destroy the moral compass, then the culture. Yeah, it
yes,
is. It
that's
is. We are in a
absolutely
that
true. Very good.
that is so true, Magallorian. You're as usual. We're so glad to have you back. You're on point when you make these arguments, and we're with you. We're 100% agree with you on that. These uniparty milk toast Republican fucknecks, okay, that have gone along with this shit, okay, are a big part of the problem too. We can rail on the American Communist Party, that used to be known as the Democratic Party, but the milk toast Republicans, the
They're
rhinos and
just as
whatnot,
bad because they're
they're
watching it
just as bad.
happen and they know that
Yeah,
it's wrong.
yeah, they know it's wrong, and they just, and many of them are sickos too, and are part of the problem as well. So,
Well, then they're
um,
just rhinos. I'm saying that the Christians who are conservatives who know with every part of their being that this is absolutely antithetical to everything decent and good, that our culture has just been, it's not even a culture issue to understand the difference between men and women. Okay, just all of a sudden this fad
it's
popped out of nowhere to create an entire nation of eunuchs.
yeah,
Okay, and children who are completely confused and destroying their future and destroying their ability to reproduce and to make them sterile and miserable and to give them all these different problems. I mean, apparently if you go on some of these hormone blockers when you're a young woman, you get osteoporosis by the time you're 25 years old, and they have their breasts removed, and now then they have their vocal folds lengthened and they sound like men, like unbelievable. And then they wake up and go, wait, I don't wait, I didn't mean to do this. And then there's no going back. There is no
yeah,
reversing course. And then
yeah,
they're left like, collateral damage on the battlefield of whatever this culture war is, and nobody is tending to them.
yeah,
And they're
yeah. Their
left
own
as
people,
casualties.
right? Their own people that are supposed to be part of the movement that they were originally part of, abandon them immediately,
Oh my
right?
God. You're not even
The minute
allowed to
they,
suggest that you've got a
yeah,
problem. They don't want to hear from
yeah,
you.
the minute they say I don't want to do this anymore and stuff like that, and this is wrong, and they're like their brain snaps open, okay, and it just like it registers with them that everything is wrong, that all that feelings and shitty feelings that they were having was wrong in the first place, and that there was nothing wrong with them, and they were advised wrong. When their brain finally gets that and they decide they want to detransition, the people that had their back the whole time when they were mutilating them, okay, and removing their breasts and chopping off their genitals and all kinds of other stuff and everything, uh, you know, all of a sudden they abandon them. They don't want nothing to do with them at all. And Magallorian hit us again. She says, when a culture condones and advocates for young girls and women, that it is okay for them to slaughter their unborn children who are almost past the point of no return.
Amen
No
to
argument
that.
here. No argument here.
I mean, I think that that's the chief cornerstone, so to speak, of the entire argument, is that when
Yeah.
we have to have the argument and the conversation that no matter how hard you try to explain and shine the light on the fact that we're dealing with human beings, babies that are actually being ripped limb from limb, limb from limb. That is actually the procedure. They, I mean, and they look at you like, that's not happening, huh? Wait,
Yeah.
what? We're talking about human beings who are being dismembered while they're fully alert and alive. And this is what we're doing to human beings, little babies. And it's considered healthcare. I think Magalorian 1776, such a cool name, is absolutely right. Hit the nail on the head right there.
Yeah, 100%. Listen, ultimate, you've heard me say it on the show 100,000 times, and you'll hear me say it another 100,000 times more. Okay, that we must, absolutely must protect our children. Okay, we as a okay, if you want to, if you're not religious and you're watching the show, okay, and you want to take God out of it, I'm never going to take God out of it. But if you want to take God out of it, just from a scientific standpoint, if you understand basic science, as a species, we would never ever be able, okay, to move on and continue to thrive and
Right.
actually we'll run ourselves out of existence if we're constantly mutilating our children and we don't continue procreation. All right. So if you just basic science, go back to biology and whatnot like that, and like I said, me personally, I'm never going to remove God out of it because that's just me. But I know there are some people who
Right.
don't believe in God. But like what you were saying, Kristen, okay, is that they still understood the basics of biology, understood that we wouldn't have this argument of men and women. We know we need each other. We know that we need to stay with one another and in order to procreate and continue to exist and stuff like that. So it's just a this war, this culture war that we're fighting. We just have to continue to fight it. And we are getting some wins recently. We fortunately have a man in office who has been full tilt on trying to protect you
I,
know little
unbelievable.
girls and women. And by doing that, fam, okay, what you guys don't understand, it's also helping the little boys, okay, because when you look at the numbers, it's really little girls are the ones that are paying the most out of all of this shit, all of this terrible stuff. Boys are paying by being emasculated and whatnot, and our testosterone levels are at an
Yeah,
all-time
it's
low and all
I'd
this
say
other
it's
shit.
almost equal about what for
Yeah,
different reasons,
but
for different reasons.
right, right. But little girls with the mastectomies and shit like that
Oh
at
my
the age
god.
of 14, they're the ones that are paying for it. Okay,
Oh my
and
god.
their sports, it's their spaces that are being violated by sickos and whatnot. Okay, by these boys in high school who, last week, one of the friends of the show, she hasn't been on the show yet, but she's a friend of the show. She will at some point. She posted in Portland. She was at the track meet of a boy running the 400 meters. I ran track in high school. I coached track. Okay, it's night and day between even on the high school level between boys and girls. And this dude, okay, as a boy was probably 1,000th in the fucking state and decided he wanted to change his name from Aiden to Ada, okay, and has been running for 2 years. What's up, conservative reality?
Right?
Running for two
Hints
years,
of reality.
okay, as a freaking as a girl, just absolutely stomping these girls in every single race. So she filmed the whole thing and he won the race by 7 seconds. Okay. By
Ridiculous.
7 seconds.
Yeah, I
Okay.
saw that.
And he wasn't because he didn't have to run that hard. He wasn't even breathing hard at the end. I used to run the quarter. If anybody ran the quarter in their lifetime on this channel, okay, who watches and stuff like that, at the end of a fucking 400, you're dead. Okay, it is 200 meters of trying to pace yourself, and the last 200 meters of absolutely freaking pedal to the metal, trying to win the race. So it just this kid wasn't even freaking breathing hard. This boy, right? And it just again, all these poor girls are suffering. These girls in high school. So we are winning with the pushback. The University of Maine system just capitulated to the Trump administration, and they no
Good.
longer in college. Men can no longer compete in women's sports in the state of Maine. And then I just saw, and if somebody can, Jonathan, maybe you could look it up. I saw it today. I think one of the world organizations for sports, uh, are now you have to do actual DNA testing, swabs tests to check your gender, which is like all across all sports, and I think that includes
The
the
fact
Olympic
that we're
sports and whatnot.
there is what
Right.
is the
The fact that we
problem.
have to be here, right? The
The
fact that we're
fact
even
that
having this
that's a
conversation.
thing, that it's a
Yeah.
thing. is what is
Yeah.
unbelievable. That never existed before. Now we have to test your gender. I mean, unbelievable. Um, I just it's so ridiculous. And
Yeah.
obviously there's an agenda behind it. Magalorian 1776 said the trans movement is to destroy identity and
Oh,
personal
hang on.
sovereignty. It is all
Let me bring that
inextricably
up.
linked to AI, the singularity, and their dream of a Homo sapien 2.0. Absolutely. That is part of it, a massive part of it, to degrade us from the inside out.
Yep.
But then I wonder about the whole Elon Musk part of it too. I have mixed feelings about his position in our government at that degree because, yeah, it all sounds nice, but then it's like, wasn't he all Neuralink and
Yeah, I'm not on board with any
everything?
of that shit. I'll
I'm
never
just
be on
saying, I
board
just
with
have
any of that shit.
questions
Yeah.
about. I just have questions about some things.
As we
I,
should.
I'm grateful that he is, doing some things, but then I'm like, but weren't you trying to turn us
Yeah.
all into robots also? So,
Yeah. That
like,
just,
what? I don't know. Again, I'm
but it's
always going to
okay
have an
because
open mind and be
it is
willing to
okay
accept
to
facts for what they are.
it is right. It is okay to look at somebody and say, "Hey, you're doing a great job with Doge," but you can go fucking, you can get on that chupacabra, okay, ride that motherfucker off a cliff and straight to hell with that Neuralink shit. Because I'm not putting a chip in my head.
Right. So, I mean,
This
the
isn't
Doge thing is
cyberpunk.
nice, but what
Yeah,
about,
yeah,
all the other
yeah.
stuff? And I have more issues with certain things I won't necessarily get into right now. More than that, I'm just going to say this: you can tell it's real because it looks so fake. Um,
Yeah.
you know, he said that about some things. Anyway,
Hmm.
I still have one eye open with that guy.
And yeah, as we should be with everybody, right? Like we shouldn't just listen on this show, fam. You guys know that even with Trump, who we voted for him 3 times, we know he won 3 times.
Yeah,
Okay,
if he
I don't
presented
people.
himself to be different, I would too. I'd be like, bye bye.
Yeah, I would if he does something that we don't, and we have, like Scott and I have already, like if there was something that we didn't agree that he did, or in just in these quick 63 days, we pointed it out and said, yeah, we're not happy. We weren't happy with that, right? As we should be, and we always tell you guys, okay, to speak up on, especially on social media, because if you think they're not paying attention, they are, right? We were able to get him to toss. Unfortunately, we couldn't get him to toss that CDC pick, the most recent one, but we were able to get him to toss that ATF pick, okay, because we were loud and obnoxious on social media about the history of that dude, you know. Um, and yes, Magallorian, yeah, Neuralink is a definite Trojan horse. Uh, you
Right.
know,
That's the problem I have with it all. It's like, why, you know,
listen,
I
I'm
mean,
not
we've
doing
got the
anything.
electric car issue about putting us all on the grid,
Yeah.
and he just happens to be the chief designer of all this stuff, and you know, I don't
Yeah,
know.
no, like that's another talk show, but you're 100% correct. Okay, there are things that we should continue to keep our eyes open. Don't close your eyes because,
I never.
like we said earlier, like we said earlier on in the show, right? Like complacency just hurt us, right? In the state of fucking Pennsylvania, in a deep red district, they just flipped a state senate seat that hasn't been in the hands of the Democrats since like 1975 or some shit like that. Okay, and they flipped it by like a bare minimum because nobody came out to fucking to what do you call it, to vote. They by like
What?
one
When was
percent.
this?
This was just yesterday or today. Yeah, it happened yesterday, I believe. It
What?
was
How is
it
how
was
are any seats going back to the left?
it just again, this is in a deep red. Trump won this. He won the what do you call it, this district by like 15 points. Okay, so it is a deep red district, and because they complacent in the state of Pennsylvania, we know Pennsylvania is not a red state. Okay, it hasn't been a red state in a very, very long time. It is definitely purple, and it is a swing state, and it's going to continue to be that way. With all the hard work that Scott Pressler did, it was just a setback. And then we got this election that's going on in Wisconsin for the state Supreme Court. They've been out and loud, and Republicans like Scott Pressler and Big Con, everybody's yelling on social media, hey guys, get out to vote, get out to vote, get out to vote, because they have early voting going on up until I think April 1st is the day of final day of is the actual election for the state Supreme court. Okay, to in order to flip it back conservative, we need the Republican to win. Otherwise, it's going to stay. They won it. Excuse me, they won it in 2024. They took it back from us. They put in the mail-in ballot things last year because they were trying to rig Wisconsin for the election. It didn't pan out, thankfully. Um, but these are things we can't be complacent, people. Just because Trump won, it means nothing in the grand scheme of things if we don't continue to make gains. And we are in the prime opportunity. The Democrats are polling at under 30% as a fucking party. Okay. We have all the power that we need to just start taking things back and start fixing things and just putting them out of commission for fucking decades if we just smart and we're not complacent. If we don't pay attention now, we need help obviously from some states. There are states that are still doing dumb shit when it comes to elections and everything like that, but there are other states that are making positive changes.
Well, you
Okay.
wonder, first of all, you're absolutely right. But what tactics are being used to bring some of these numbskulls into the government in the first place when you have people like AOC and, you know, the squad and, I know,
Cock,
all their names, Ayanna
cockeyed
Presley and
was it
Crockett and
cockeyed
all these,
Cratchit?
yeah. It's like,
Yeah,
what are
cockeyed
these
Cratchit.
people are absolutely devoid of, not forget about conscience. We're talking about just basic, I think, skills to have a conversation and use logic because they're not interested in logic. They have an agenda that they're pushing that have nothing to do with their interest in, procuring a wonderful nation that is founded on the Constitution. They have no interest in that. Their interest is, I'm going to read this script and do what, Daddy George Soros tells me to do. And so the question is how do these people get into office in the first place? And so we have to stand up
Low
and
info
start
voters.
speaking and speak to the voters then. We like doing what you're doing right now and have a platform and try to get it out there as much as possible. Like for people who are even remotely in a position to change the course of things, there has to be more voices because the fact that someone's listening to AOC and say, you know what? She made sense to me. What is it that they're doing that is
It's
having enough pull to where people are getting out and voting for them? I have no idea. I'd like to know.
It is. It is. Like I said, it goes back to. Hey, did you see what Mandalorian said about AOC? Absolutely hilarious. AOC, God wasted a perfectly good asshole when he put teeth in her mouth.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
That was great,
total,
Mandalorian. That
total
was
dope.
absolutely great. Yeah,
Yeah,
well, she's the pendeja in chief to me. she's just pendeja to me.
the
That's I
in
don't even
chief.
call her AOC. And then you got cockeyed Cratchit down in Texas, constantly
These
running her
people
soup
hate this
cooler.
country. I mean,
They abs-
they hate this country. They hate everything about it, and they hate
it's
every single
it is
person in it. They are liars. All they do is lie every single
it
time they
is
open their mouth. They are completely just totally stupid. They have nothing to offer whatsoever other than constant grievances and complaints and arrogance and bad grammar. And they have nothing to offer whatsoever other than a very clear depiction of their very low IQ.
and but it is you got to understand where these people have been constantly being repeatedly voted back into office. AOC now, I think she's on her fourth term now or something like that. Because it's only every two
Yeah,
years. And cockeyed is I think on her first,
yeah,
second. I don't know, maybe her second. But anyway, it's low info. Not only low
yes,
info voters, but you have to understand too. This is generational thinking. Okay, so this is
yes,
being passed down from one generation to the next, and the leaders. All right, the leaders in these especially in the minority communities, the fucking pastors and all these other shit in their churches, they're leading from their pulpit, okay, talking all kinds of ungodly shit, all right, and these people are they're sucking it in because they believe what's being told to them, right? And the victimization mentality, all right, that
yeah,
victim mentality has just it is part of the plan. Like we were talking about that, we are talking about that earlier today. That's part of the plan. You get people to believe
right.
that they're victims and they're perpetual victims. They pass it on from one generation to the next. At a minimum, it's like three generations right now in this country, okay, that believe that they're victims and believe that this country is not worth it. This country has done nothing but freaking put them down and they can't get ahead. Meanwhile, there's a million and one examples in their own communities, okay, to see that you can do whatever you need to with hard work in this keywords hard work, all right, in this country. But it's
The
again, it's
government doesn't want
generational at
you
this
to
point.
know your own strength and ability to take ownership over your life. They don't want that because then they don't have ownership over your life. It's all about creating enough victims who are constantly in a state of weakness and need, and then daddy government comes and says we'll fill your need, we'll make you weak and not be able to think for yourself. And meanwhile, the worst thing for the human spirit is to assume yourself as a victim,
Yep.
because everything in your life will be colored that way. Everything will be painted in a way that suggests that it's just not for you. You can't get ahead. Everyone's out to get you, and you're bitter and angry. And that's why we're seeing what we're seeing. Eric, darling, I have to head out now. I was able to make it an hour. Thank you so much to everyone. And I will be on the Patriot panel on Friday. I have two little ones that are needing some attention from their aunt. So
Well, you actually,
thank
I
you.
actually had you here longer than we thought, so I really truly appreciate
Yes.
your time. Go ahead and take care of the little ones.
Thank you. God bless you
Hope.
all. Have a great night. And I'll see you real soon.
All right. Thank you, Kristen.
Thanks.
We'll see you on Friday, hon.
Good night. Bye.
Bye. Well, America, that was the Chris influence. It was good to have her back. We always have some really great conversations. It's always good to have her perspective on things. She will be with us on Friday night, and that's pretty cool. The Patriot panel, it'll be me, her, Red Day, Conservative Reality will be with us. Um, Shane Jenkins, J Sixer that we had earlier, the first J Sixer we had of this month, he's supposed to be back with us, and the real Tomly Booze is coming to hang with us from England. So that ought to be pretty funny for that Patriot panel because he's a riot to have. If you're just joining us from on both YouTube and Rumble, and you'd like to support the channel, there is a Buy Me a Coffee link at the top of each chats. Please help the channel out if you can. Uh, there's also Jonathan's been dropping the Discord links in both chats. Sign up on the Discord, become a member, hang out with us. It is a way for us to continue our conversations off screen, and we can get into things. There are plenty of different channels in within the hangout. It's called Big Red One's Patriot Hangout. um Big Red One Guy's Patriot Hangout, sorry. And we're trying to get a movie night together for a Saturday night, fam. So like let's get some members in there so that we can come up with a solution on what do you call it, movies to watch, and watch it together. It doesn't have to necessarily be political. We watch whatever. Just understand that if we're watching a movie that some of us have never seen and it sucks, be prepared to be roasted. If I pick a movie or Scott picks a movie or whatever and it sucks to you guys, roast the shit out of us. We're okay with it. That's what it's all about. As family, that's what we do. We roast one another. So you know yeah, that's what we're looking to do, fam. So join the Discord. Jonathan just dropped it in there. I'm going to stay a little bit longer. I want to get into this article in regards to murdered J6er Ashley Babbitt. This is some good news. So I hope it goes somewhere. So it says Trump vows to investigate Michael Byrd, the killer cop who murdered Ashley Babbitt, and has since been promoted. Says President Trump has said he will look into the status of Capitol Police Officer Michael Byrd. As readers will remember, Byrd is the man who murdered January 6th protester Ashley Babbitt in cold blood. While protesters were aggressively persecuted and imprisoned, Byrd was cleared of any wrongdoing. Following an investigation by his superiors, it wasn't a real investigation. They didn't investigate shit. After avoiding criminal prosecution, he was given a medal by the Biden regime and has since been promoted to a higher position because that's, if you're a shitbird, you get promoted up in the government, right? Like that's what happens, So uh it, I hope something comes to fruition from that. I really hope that we have an actual real investigation. I know that the J6 committee, they had their sham committee. Um, you know, they put all the bullshit. They had a whole bunch of these cops come out and talk, and other people come out and talk, and they didn't want to listen to any of the whistleblowers. They had some FBI whistleblowers who wanted to come. They didn't get any of those people. They didn't bring any J6ers to get their opinion on things. Nothing. They didn't do shit. But this guy, He murdered Ashley Babbitt, got away with it, and nothing. And had the cop been white and Ashley Babbitt been black, but maybe actually I don't even think they would have. I don't think we would have had any kind of riots on that, because she was MAGA. So but still, they're just nothing. So it's really sad. I really do hope that it goes somewhere. We need it to go somewhere. We really really need to get this guy investigated because he's a shitbird, and he has a history of being a shitbird. And again, that's the government for you, right? They promote you up if you're a scumbag. You get higher and higher up in the bureaucracy so you can make decisions, to affect other people's lives and absolutely continue, uh, to donate your fucking scummery to the swamp. It's an absolute disaster in our government. And I just really hope that, I really hope something comes out of that. We really, really need that. Her family needs that more than anything. Um, you know, that's really I really want it for her family, because they need to get her husband and her mother, who's usually out there a lot speaking and whatnot. They just need some. They definitely need some. You can't ever get closure with stuff like that, but someone needs to pay because he didn't pay and he should have. It's just a horrible thing that happened. You know, um, it's just sad to see. Really, really sad to see. Um, but that's where we're at. Hang on one second. Conserve Reality says Bigger One Guy, the sickest part is that the government took her body, lied to her husband and the family, and attempted to cremate her body without her husband and family consent. Yeah, I did know that actually, man. I have forgotten about that, but yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, man. I did know that. I just had forgotten about that. I'm glad you brought that up, man. That's the sickening, man. That's it's fucking government for you. It's just insane. It's really insane. You know, um, Hang on. What would you say? Says Tom Fitton and Judicial Watch has already taken up the fight. Yes, I know. Tom Fitton is awesome at what he does. They have already started lawsuits and battling for documents. Yeah, 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 yeah. Tom Fitton is fantastic, man. The work he does is just, with his FOIA requests, he's on top of shit. His law group is fantastic. They're really good at what they do. I'm glad we have people like him on our side. We need more people like him on our side, to dig into a lot of this crap and do the fights. That's the problem is that the left has they freaking they absolutely control uh, the legal system right now. Many of them are judges, many of them are lawyers and whatnot, and they have like full control of our legal system in this country, and we don't have enough of people on our side. We saw that as with some of the friends of the show that came on to tell the J6 stories. They had lawyers and whatnot, that wouldn't take their cases and stuff like that, and like, oh, we think you have a case, but they were completely and totally afraid of the federal government, and or their firms were going to kick them out of the firms. There's like you hear those stories all the time. uh yeah, I'm with you 100%, man. They do a lot of good stuff. Tom Fitton's fantastic. We need more lawyers on our side to just get shit done. We really really need it. We're lacking there, considerably. We're lacking, in the legal department of having patriot lawyers and constitutionalists. And it's not that they don't exist. So to be clear, America, we do have them on our side and they do exist. We just need them to, we just need some more of them to step up is what we need to just get shit done. You know, we so much work that needs to get done legally. So many things that the what do you call it? That the government needs to be sued on and everything like that. That we just need to get it done. Hang on one second. Uh, Same thing that happened to Tara Reid and Joe Biden. Her Me Too lawyers were the most powerful, and the Dems pressured them and they dropped it. Yeah, yeah, man. S- Sad, right? Isn't it sad? Yeah, I heard that she did that. She fled to Russia due to fears of retaliation from the Biden crime family. It's fucking sad, man. You can't even get your day in court, right? Like in this country, you can literally sue a ham sandwich if you need to, but like if you're on the right side of history and you're the right side of life and the right side of God, okay, you can't get your you got to fight in order to get your day in court to go after some of these scumbags. But it's just a terrible thing. Anyway, I just wanted to update you all on the administration is going to start take a look into him, and hopefully he gets tossed. I want to see him just lose everything. The way the J6ers have lost everything. I want to see these people lose absolutely everything. It's oh, it's vengeance. It's not vengeance. It's let's do everything like Red Day and I always say, do things by the law, do things by the book. Don't be like the Biden administration, but the evidence is all there. We just need to, act on it. That's all. We just need to act correctly on it, and just do what needs to get done to get rid of some of these assholes and put them where they belong. A lot of these people, belong behind bars, and we want to see perp walks. We understand it's not going to happen overnight, but we want to start seeing perp walks and whatnot. So anyway, fam, once again, um, you know, there's hang on. Conserve says it's fair treatment under the law according to the Dems. No one is above the law. Yeah, 100%, man. So put them where the law directs. I agree. Yep. Yeah. 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 You know, I didn't know. Guys, I'm glad you guys updated me on that. I actually didn't know that she had fled to Russia. So it was good, conservative, to bring that up. I didn't know that she had left. I had stopped paying attention to that. I didn't realize that she had to, for her safety. And I don't blame her. Don't blame her, because like they would have definitely offed her in a heartbeat. Um, and like you said, her lawyers, big time Democratic law firm, they got the word from powerful Democrats in the nation in Washington to not do anything about it. So they decided not to do anything about it. Sad. It's really, really sad. But anyway, fam, yeah, we should probably talk about that at some point. I think it is a big story. I think you're right. Yeah, we should get into that. Well, you know what? When you come on the show, another time you come on the show, Conserve Reality is going to be with us on Friday on the Patriot panel. Um, we'll have to bring you back on another show to what do you call it? Well, unless you want to talk about it on Friday, but that is something interesting. I don't have the full picture on Tara Reid, so I'd like to actually learn more about that, to get some more information. But anyway, fam, I'm getting ready to sign out here. Um, you know, would you wait? What is this? How Biden sent the FBI and the Secret Service to the University of Delaware, and they said there was nothing kept. Then they moved the boxes to his house and other locations. Yeah, but he also had things in his house already. Uh, yeah, he actually, if you remember, he also had shit at his house that was sitting on the hood of his fucking 1969 Corvette or whatever Corvette it was he had. But you're right, they moved a lot of shit um, to protect him and stuff like that. It's again, and nothing happened, but they went in and they freaking stormed Mar-a-Lago. They pilfered through Melania Trump's underwear drawer because they're a bunch of scummy individuals and whatnot and stuff. So, you know, um, yeah, no, I know that, but I was just making mention that he also had documents and stuff like that from his days, right? From the skip from his days of being a what do you call it, a senator and everything. And he wasn't allowed to have them because he was a senator. He wasn't allowed to have him as a vice president either. So anything he had from his senatorial days to being the vice president, he wasn't allowed to have any of that shit. But fam, on Friday we have a pretty good panel coming up on Friday with a Patriot panel. Shane Jenkins is going to be with us. A Conservative Reality is going to be back with us. The Chris Influence is going to be with us. It'll be myself, Red Day Walker, and the real Tom Lee Booz will be hanging with us from England. So that ought to be fun. We might have some more rat escapades with him and his cat. That was pretty freaking. Uh, yeah, I heard something about that too today. Allegedly, Trump is going after all of them for those things. Everything the pardons do not cover. I heard that. That would be fantastic if he does that. Conserve. That would be freaking awesome if he did that. Just give people the legit perp walks that they deserve, like they did to everybody else. That's all. Just that this shit doesn't stop until they feel the heat that they put on everybody else. They got to feel the same thing. All you got to do is play by the same rules that they did. You know. Yeah, I agree. He should have been for going back years ago. He should have been so. But anyway, fam, that was the Patriot panel. Um, please, fam, we need you guys in the Discord. We wanna build that community up so that we can continue to dialogue with one another. in the Discord. And again, we're trying to set up a movie night there so we can all watch one, and you guys get to pick them. There's a channel there called Movie Select Suggestions. Just drop your movie suggestions in there, and we'll figure it out. you know um yes, Mandalorian, it definitely will. You have a great evening too, and as like you said, stay frosty, and I'll see you on Friday. So with all of that said, fam, what another great show of Break the Machine podcast with the Chris Influence. Always great to have her on the show. Always have some good dialogue and back and forth between her and I. Our conversations are pretty decent. She will be with us on Friday, like I said previously. With that said, I'm the Big Red One guy signing out. And remember that together and only together can we break the machine. Let's continue to bring this community up. Let's continue to build this family up. And God bless you all. God bless America. And I will see you all on Friday, fam. Have a good night.